Mars, the god of war, enters Scorpio September 22nd. Stealth infiltrations, laser beam focus, and determination. Revenge is a dish best served cold. Hello, Eliane-Nicole here, your astrologer and tarot reader, bringing you the planetary transits to help you surf these cosmic currents with awareness, grace, and alignment. And today I'm here to talk about Mars moving into Scorpio September 22nd, where he will be all the way through November 4th. And before I get to the translation, I want to say if you're watching this on YouTube, please make sure that you subscribe to my channel. Please hit the notification bell so you're notified every time I post a new video. Please like, please comment, please share. It's helpful to me in the algorithm so that I can continue to give these free astrological offerings, and I'm trying to grow my community and grow my business, and so it's free for you to give me a like or a comment or a share, and very helpful to me, so I would really appreciate it. I'm trying to break the milestone of 1,000 followers. I'm a little bit over 900. I would love to get there by my birthday, October 8th. I believe in miracles. Help me make it happen. And now, without further ado, I will get into the translation of Mars into Scorpio. And as I mentioned, on a collective scale, Mars is known as the god of war. And but in our personal lives, Mars has to do with our drive. He has to do with, how he's placed in our chart shows like what we desire and then how we go for those desires. Mars represents the motivating force within that drives us towards what we want in life. Mars also deals with our relationship to anger, conflict resolution. Mars sometimes in our chart can show like how we drive. Mars and Mercury together, really. Mars is our libido. Mars shows a lot about our sex drive, and it shows, what kind of, how we pursue our desires when we are attracted to somebody. And so Mars is a lot of things. In the collective, Mars can also be, police. He can be the military. That's who we track for anything going on with them as astrologers. And, he can represent brothers or men by transit in our chart. And so Mars is very important in the body. He represents the muscles. Oh yeah, that reminds me, Mars represents athletes, and he can also be surgeons sometimes, because Mars rules knives and needles and guns. So Mars covers a big spectrum, and I think I covered a lot of it. But Mars in Scorpio is Mars coming home. Scorpio is the yin, watery, fixed temple of Mars. So Mars is at home in Scorpio, and Mars is at home in Aries. But Aries is Mars's fiery yang temple, and Scorpio is Mars's watery, fixed temple. And so Mars in Scorpio is very stealth. This is a stealth warrior. This is a stealth assassin, dare I say. This is someone who infiltrates in the dark when no one sees them. This is someone who has X-ray vision in the dark. And and if you have Mars in Scorpio in your chart, I'm talking about you. But as Mars is transiting Scorpio, this is the energy in the air in general around our drive. So this is going to be a time where, even people who don't have Mars in Scorpio in their chart can tap into this energy. And the best of the Mars in Scorpio energy is, like I said, laser beam focus and determination, very piercing, impeccable intuition. And, you know, it can also be a very sexual transit. You know, people can feel a much more increased libido during this time. And the toxic side of Mars in Scorpio is this whole idea of revenge being a dish best served cold, and this kind of archetype of like the stealth assassin that Mars and Scorpio can embody. So there is that kind of like cold-blooded side to it. You know, Mars and Scorpio can ruthlessly cut someone off and just never speak to them again. You know, Mars and Scorpio can be very powerful if used for good, and it can be very destructive if used for dark. And with that being said, I'm just going to get into the planetary transits that Mars is making while he's traveling through Scorpio until November 4th. And before I get into the aspects, though, I'm going to talk a little bit about how it's affecting the different signs. Mars in Scorpio is going to be a difficult transit for the fixed signs. Now, for Scorpio, Mars in Scorpio is obviously very personal, and I think Scorpios are going to see the side of like increased drive, increased focus, determination to get to a goal, just really locking in. And that's the good side. Scorpios could also feel increased libido. That's, you know, the good side, I suppose. But there can be, you know, dark feelings that might be driving them, you know, revenge or, you know, a resentment, like I'll show them type of thing. And so that's just something to be aware of. But for Tauruses, the Scorpio, while Mars is in Scorpio, if you have any Taurus placements, especially Sun, Moon, or Rising, but even if you have Midheaven, MCIC, whatever, even Venus, Scorpio, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, any of your planets in a Taurus, at some point when Mars is going through Scorpio in this next 6 weeks, it will be opposing your planets. And this will be a very difficult transit for Taurus. They may be feeling some very oppositional forces in their life at the point that this transit interacts with your personal planet. So if you want to know that, contact me for a reading. I would love to read for you. I read on Zoom, so I can read for people anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world. I'll put a link in the description of my YouTube to book a reading with me. But for the other fixed signs, Leo, and who am I leaving out? Aquarius, they are going to experience a square at some point when Mars is moving through Scorpio. And so the square to Leo is really like, you know, on the Leo side of things, you know, it causes conflict, you know, between the Scorpio and Leo houses in our chart. And that'll be different places for different people depending on your rising sign. But if you have any Leo placements, when the Mars transit gets there, you know, there can be a conflict or challenge of an emotional nature. It can involve, you know, jealousy or envy for somebody getting more attention than the other person. It can also involve conflicts or challenges versus privacy versus being out in the limelight. It could be a time, you know, so, and then with the Scorpio Aquarius squares, it feels like there's issues around surveillance and conflicts revolving around that. So there's so much more to it, but I'm just giving the kind of overview. And so on September 24th, one of the most intense aspects is happening. And this is when Mars squares Pluto in Aquarius. Mars in Scorpio squaring Pluto in Aquarius. And again, I think this has a lot to do, you know, in the collective. I think we're going to see some big conflicts involving surveillance technology. And, but in our personal lives too, that topic could come up. In general, Mars squares Pluto can be very explosive, and that means literal explosions or even more metaphorical explosions that happen, you know, explosive conversations, explosive eruptions. It can be very volcanic, you know, so that's on 9/24. Mars and Pluto can definitely bring violence. It can bring things like, you know, revenge, and it can, you know, bring out underworld figures in conflicts with the police or the military. It's a doozy transit on the 24th. On October 18th, Mars will form a trine with the North Node in Pisces. This is a really beautiful transit. When Mars in Scorpio comes into contact with the North Node in Pisces, we are very clear about our direction. We are locked in. We are aligned with our spiritual values and our highest path forward, and we are in the flow towards that path. We are receiving the emotional support, the financial support. We have the grit, we have the determination, we have the spiritual fortitude. That's a really beautiful transit. So Mars does make it through that rough conflict with Pluto, and all I can say about it is just try to not be too reactive whatever happens on the 24th, because, you know, it's gonna pass, and just stay calm, whatever it is. And that aspect on the 24th is going to impact fixed signs, early degrees the most. You know, the air signs, Libra and Gemini, might actually, although there's a conflict going on, somehow be uplifted by it, because the Pluto is trining your signs. But, you know, if you're on the side of Scorpio and the fixed signs, it's a challenge. So on October 19th, Mars in Scorpio is conjoining Mercury in Scorpio. And so this is where, you know, I think a really just kind of incredible strategy is implemented, is born, is started, something like that. And this could be on the world stage around war. You know, I mean, it looks like as Mars enters Scorpio, it definitely changes the tone of the war. I almost see this general rising to power because of his skill and abilities. Military leader, or, you know, but then it's also, there's so much here, and I'm kind of being all over the place. I don't want to make this too long, but I've decided not to be too precious about these videos because I just won't get them done, so I'm just doing it. On 10/27, October 27th, Mars in Scorpio trines Jupiter in Cancer. Again, this is very abundant. This is Mars achieving these goals he's been working so hard on since he entered September 22nd. On the 27th of October, the rewards are coming from the hard work and determination and the laser beam focus. The rewards are pouring in, you know, and So that's really beautiful and abundant and prosperous and a milestone. In fact, that whole stretch from October 24th to October 29th is full of water trines. At some point, I'll probably do a video just on that, but it's a beautiful period where I think a lot of what we've been going through in this eclipse season is really going to pay off, and we're going to understand what the higher purpose of everything has been and actually be grateful that things happened the way that they did. At least that's in our personal lives that I'm talking about. You know, the astrology plays out differently on the personal and the collective. And so I'm always trying to go between that fine line. There's definitely parallels. There's certainly parallels, but we have a little bit more agency over the transits in our personal lives than we do over what's happening in the world at large. And on October 29th, Mars in Scorpio is forming a trine with Saturn in Pisces. And again, this echoes the trine that Mars already had with the North Node, but this is like a payoff again, a major payoff for all of the hard work. You know, Saturn has to do with consequences, and you know, Saturn trine Mars is like you worked hard and it's paying off and you are getting the rewards. And this is especially for people who have water and earth placements. When I talk about these water trines, the water and earth placements are the ones who are really going to be seeing these rewards for their hard work, it looks like. And then on 11/3, November 3rd, Neptune retrograde, another trine. So Mars is making all of these trines from the 18th of October through November 3rd. And so I love this Mars in Scorpio. He has that one square to Pluto, which can be dangerous, can be violent, can be eruptive. I won't lie about that. But after that, once he gets through that hurdle and he gets to, you know, past mid-October, it's really strong Mars. So I think we're seeing courage, we're seeing honor, we're seeing chivalry, we're seeing valor, we're seeing bravery, we're seeing all of the healthy parts of Mars. We're seeing the divine masculine expressed. You know, this Mars, it's like once he gets into October, I feel like Mars is a hero. You know, the Mars of September 24th looks like he can be a villain, but the Mars of October 18th through November 3rd looks like a hero. And those are all of the aspects. I think, I will do a little tarot pull. I wanted to let you guys know that I am now on TikTok and I'm doing daily transit readings of the daily astrology, and I'm doing a daily one card tarot pull there. It's short form content, but everyone's been telling me that TikTok is a much more receptive audience for my content, and so, but I love my YouTube audience. It's small, but it's a quality audience, and I love you guys, and I'm gonna stay here, but I'm really trying to grow this audience. And if you stuck around to the end, then that means this tarot pull is definitely for you. I'm using the Afro Tarot, and the card for you is Temperance. I love Temperance. Temperance is about, this is the sunrise, you know, after the darkest hour comes the dawn. And this is about being balanced between earth and water, the realm of logic and reason and reality, and the realm of the spirit and emotion and intuition and dreams. And I love this because I feel like it's picking up on the eclipse energy of the Virgo Pisces axis, of that importance of integrating the more earthy qualities of materialism with the more watery qualities of spirituality, the more earthy qualities of, you know, reality really versus the watery qualities of our dream. And as Mars moves into Scorpio, he is moving into a water sign. And so he is inviting us to lean into our intuitions and our instincts as we, you know, have this laser beam focus about locking into achieving our desires and goals. So temperance is also about balance and moderation. So, in conclusion, life is lifing, the world is worlding. Stay heavily meditated, my friends.